Shivaya. Om Namah Shivaya. Om Namah Shivaya.
Sadhana Chatushtaya is a teaching of the divine sage Adi Shankara. This teaching refers to the 4 traits that one should strive and develop before and during one's spiritual journey. These form the bedrock for spiritual growth and personal transformation. With one day left in Varanasi, I decided to visit Sarnath. About 15 kilometers from Varanasi, Sarnath is a pilgrimage spot for Buddhists. It is said that Buddha gave his sermon at this very spot after his enlightenment. At that time, he had 5 disciples. The Moola Gandha Kutir Vihara temple was built in 1931 by a Sri Lankan Buddhist, Sri Angarika Dharmapal. This temple stands as a beautiful monument to mark the holy spot of the first sermon. The inside is filled with beautiful frescoes created by a Japanese artist. These frescoes depict the life of Lord Buddha from birth until he attained nirvana. Namaste. Welcome to KYG. I am in Sarnath, about 15 kilometers from the city of Varanasi. It takes about 45 minutes or so to drive with traffic and other things. This is such a beautiful, peaceful and wonderful atmosphere here. It's unbelievable. 2000 years ago, this place was just a forest. That's why they have a deer forest, a replica of that right now. They have it's kind of a zoo now, mini zoo. But it was a forest with deers. And it is believed that Buddha, after his enlightenment, came here in Sarnath to give his first sermon. So it has very remarkable history behind it. And to be here to teach the lessons of yoga is, of course, a great opportunity. And as always, I stand here humbled to share thoughts on what we have been learning in the course of this Kaivalya Marga at this very holy spot where Buddha spoke 2000 years ago. I consider it the great privilege, one of the greatest privileges, that the universe somehow orchestrated it and I could afford to be here, and the time worked out. The weather is beautiful, and behind me is a temple dedicated to the Buddha, and way behind me over there is the stupa that was erected by King Ashoka, I believe. So we in this class are going to continue learning the Shat Sampatti. And I think it's more of a coincidence that we come in that Shat Sampatti, in the 6 virtues that we have learned so far. We have covered 3. We have covered Sama, Dhamma, Uparati or Uparama, which is control of the mind, control of the senses. I'm just broadly saying these terms. You have to watch the video and understand where I shared these thoughts and perspectives a little more in detail. And Uparati was withdrawal of the mind from the senses. Now, when you withdraw the mind from the senses, either in deep meditation or just as a lifestyle practice, that I don't want my mind to constantly be in this roller coaster up and down. I'm done. I'm tired of this, right? So in a yoga path, in the path of spirituality, in the path of Vedanta, in the path of going within to seek that connection with the universe, you have to learn to be in a state where the senses do not distract you anymore. The senses are going outward. The eye see things outside. The eye cannot see itself. The ear is hearing things outside. It perhaps cannot hear itself, and so on. The senses are not trained, are not meant to go within. But the mind has this unique capability of going beyond the senses. And the fourth virtue in this connection is Titiksha. Titiksha or endurance. Titiksha or endurance. Yat Shama Dhamma Uparati Titiksha. In the Yoga Sutras, Patanjali talks in the very first chapter, he outlines all the aspects of sadhana, what are the obstacles and all of that. And we'll take it up as course of study, because that is one of the best treatises to understand and practice meditation in the right manner. In that one verse he says, Satu dirgha kala nairantarya satakara adhara sevito dhridabhumi, which means dirgha kaleshu, you have to endure this practice for a while. He says dirgha kaleshu, long time, but long is relative, because at another point he says tibra samveganam asanam, that is, the more intensely you practice, the more focused you are in your practice, the faster you reach your goal. So length of time is not an objective thing here, it's more relative. But he says be prepared to endure this for a long time. Dirgha kaleshu, nairantarya, constant. Satakara sevito, with enthusiasm, with happiness, you get into this practice and endure this practice. So this restraining of the senses, these idea of withdrawing of the mind. You may ask, how long? And that's where endurance comes in. You endure that. When the word endurance is perhaps not the right word, but I'm just going with it for now, because endure has kind of a negative connotations. How long do I have to endure this trouble, this suffering? So we have psyched ourselves to certain words meaning certain things. But at this point, I'm not getting anything else. Titiksha is staying focused in that path, one-pointedness, and staying in the path, not going back and forth. Sai Baba used to tell us, butter needs very little heat to melt. But then even that heat has to be steady and for a while. Even if it's a matchstick, it has to stay lit for a while, for perhaps a minute or two, for this big, rock of butter to slowly begin melting. So how long is a very relative question. But then the word Titiksha here definitely has, to me, a reference to time, where we are in this practice. And I think when you have this approach as to, I am not going to give this up until I reach my goal, then time becomes irrelevant, right? If you are looking at, oh my gosh, just like we look at our investments, I put my money in the bank, it's been 5 years, how much have I got out of it? Has it doubled? Has it tripled? Has it earned 5% interest per year or 12% and so on? In your investments, you compare that. But that doesn't work in spirituality. In spirituality, you go into it and say, I am in this for good. till I realize my goal. So endurance is kind of a misnomer. Titiksha is once you get into it, that's it. You're not looking back. It's that one-pointedness, complete focused attention to your practice. However long that might be, however many lifetimes it could take, it should not discourage you. Because you get to sleep and you say, when you don't finish something, today you say, all right, I'm going to sleep, I can't do this anymore, tomorrow I'll take off from where I left tonight. That is the same thing with lifetime. You take off from where you left off in the previous life. That's my belief. And there are many experiences that has proved to me personally that I have taken off from where I have left in my previous lifetime. And there are many lifetimes to come. Because on the one side you are already liberated, but the other side is you live for the joy of it and you welcome lifetimes because now you understand this is just a game and you can play it. So Titiksha is there is a time element, but then that emphasis on time slowly disappears as you stay completely focused in the path. When we use the word Titiksha, it has a power to it. It has an energy to it. In practice. So it is withdrawing the mind from the senses and holding it there for a while. Training the mind not to get affected by the senses and so on and so forth. There are two things here. One is the lessons that I have learned from Ramana Maharishi and Lord Buddha. We are here in Buddha's place. Buddha searched for higher wisdom. He saw, when he was young, he saw a dead body, he saw an old man, he saw a sick man, and he said, what is this going on here? What happens to the body? Does it age? Does it wrinkle away and die? Then what happens to me? And so on, right? That's how its search began. And then he goes into all these yogic practices and all of these intense austerities. But other than burning his body, he didn't realize anything out of it. And finally he sits under the Bodhi tree and he says, I'm not getting up till I get the answer, and he becomes enlightened. He realizes that everything is within him and he is everything. So the point here being, when I hear that story, when I hear Ramana Maharishi's story, Ramana Maharishi, he's a much more recent saint, but an amazing role model who spent weeks, months and years in intense austerities. He would be in what is called the Patala Linga, a Shivalinga in Arunachala, where he would go under the earth because it was 30-40 feet under the earth, and he would sit there and pray and pray and pray and meditate, and he would sleep there and rats would be all over him and he was weak and famished and so on, until his guru Sheshadri Swamigal came, picks him up and takes care of his body, his wounds and so on. So the story goes. And then Ramana says, what is the point in all this? Ultimately, I am the one. Now, when I think of endurance and Titiksha and the time element and how long do I have to endure and all, it's very tempting to listen to Ramana Maharishi and Buddha and say, yeah, you know what, they said, why do all this? We don't need to do all that. When we say that, when my mind says that, I correct myself saying they went through that. They went through the process of inner search. They tried the path, and that has been their experience. They shared their experience. Now, if we just borrow that end product just because it's very convenient for us, saying, oh yeah, God is me, I am God, what is the use of all this crazy yoga and fasting and putting your body through all that rigor? You have to ask yourself, when you are taking that philosophy, you have to ask yourself, is that a philosophy that has come to you, that has matured within you after intense search and yearning for God? Or is it a borrowed philosophy that you borrowed it from a book, you borrowed it from a teacher, however great the teacher may be, whether it's Ramana Maharishi, Lord Buddha, or Sai Baba, or the Gita, it doesn't matter. The point is, when a philosophy and my core values begin to guide my practice, and I enter into this one focused path of Titiksha, I have to ask myself, what is my experience? What is my aparoksha anubhuti? I think we talked about it in some video earlier. What is my own first-hand experience? And if that's not, what do I do to get there? What do I need to drop off to get there? Borrowing ideas from enlightened beings such as the Buddha, Ramana Maharishi and the Gita, simply because it seems easier, because they're not talking of disciplining the body now. They're not talking of getting up early in the morning and sticking to a routine and this and that. They're just saying you are everything. The eye is in you. Everything is the eye. And so that has come to them out of that intense path. So I guess the way I understand it is I have to go through these paths until I get glimpses of that. Otherwise, I'm going to live my life with a borrowed philosophy, and I'm never going to cause inner transformation. As long as I'm leaning on a teacher or his teachings and his theories and his version of the truth, then I am never going to understand and explore and discover my version of the truth. My dear friends, the DNA in each one of us is so unique and so different that there is no other person like you in this universe. You are very unique. There is no other person like you. So how can you compare somebody else's experience or take somebody else's experience and apply it to yourself? He is very unique. She is very unique. Her learning, his learning has been based on her unique experiences. You can listen to them, draw inspiration from those teachings, use them as broad posts, if you will, that show you the way. But other than that, to take that philosophy and say, okay, I have also got it. Now I don't need any discipline in my life, because basically who it is, I'm God. So why go to a temple, or why do all of this? Then if that is coming out of a real awareness, then kudos. But if it is coming out of simply adopting a philosophy because that in your subconscious mind that seems easier, then I'm afraid that we will not get anywhere. That is why in the yoga path, Adi Shankara, in spite of attaining the highest, he spelled these things for us more than 2500 years ago. He spelled these things for us. He said you need Viveka, you need Vairagya, you need Shat Sampatti. In Shat Sampatti, in the 6 virtues, you need Shama, Dhamma, Uparati and Titiksha, the power to endure this path, stay in this path, be focused on this path. Don't keep changing your mind, don't going back and forth, changing one teacher to another, one book to another, one religion to another. Because at the end of it, all these teachers talk of the same thing. All religions talk of the same thing, the essence of all religions. The paths may be different, the approach may be different. But when you talk of Jesus being crucified and the Christ being born, it is the spirit that lives after death. When he talks of the Father of Jesus Christ, you're talking of the formless Brahman. It is the same thing with Allah. And then Jesus says in I think it's Psalm 22, 23 in John, he says, don't seek here and there, seek within. The kingdom of heaven is within you. So in essence, they are all talking of the same thing. But just by you merely, once something becomes a little too difficult to digest, you say, you know what, I'll switch to another teacher. I'll switch to another guru. And you're searching for that perfect guru who somehow is going to magically transport you to that state of enlightenment. That doesn't happen. That's not happened to me. If it happens to you, I bow to you. But it's not happened to me. I want to discover this path. I enjoy this path so much that I love being on this path. The more I discover myself, the more it expands. The more it expands, the more focused I am in this path. The more I begin to receive, the more I begin to share. And so the Titiksha becomes a blessing. It is not something I have to maintain it. I don't have to remember to stay in Titiksha. But Titiksha, endurance, or staying focused and staying in the path for however long it takes, becomes part and parcel of your nature. And when you do that, then yoga practice falls by itself. Then experiences come by itself. The awakening happens in so many stages and it becomes so beautiful. Titiksha. Titiksha. Meditate on that word, Titiksha. Endurance, staying focused on the path for however long it takes. Let that be your meditation for this class. And from this class onwards, all these things add on, like I've said earlier. Let the Buddha energy, the enlightened energy of this greatest teacher, an amazing, powerful being who came to teach, taught us that ultimately everything is within. Let us hope we find that path, that opening, and the strength to hold on to that vision that comes out of the innermost spiritual energy that is one with the universe. Thank you for watching as always. May Buddha guide you, may Buddha guide me, may Buddha guide all of us. Namaste from Sarnath. Namaste. Om Namah Shivaya.
Om Namah Shivaya. Om Namah Shivaya. Om Namah Shivaya.